We talked to Geddy Lee yesterday, so we'll get to that in a moment. Christie's and Hunt Auctions proudly present selections from Geddy Lee, the important baseball memorabilia. It's his collection, historic offering that you have going back for many, many centuries or decades here. Live auction will take place December 6th. The pieces are available to look at December 1st through December 5th. For more information, visit Christie's.com. Here is how I started my interview with the lead singer of the band Rush, Geddy Lee. We were trying to play Guess Geddy Lee's favorite baseball player growing up. Now, you save your answer. Let's go around the room. Geddy Lee's favorite baseball player growing up, Todd.
Greg Luzinski.
Greg Luzinski. Seton O'Connor.
Sandy Koufax.
Marvin.
Mickey Mantle.
Paulie.
Harmon Killebrew.
I'm going Al Kaline.
Oh, God, you guys are torturing me. Yeah, Al Kaline.
Oh, okay.
Nicely done.
All right. Thank you. What was did you meet Al?
No, never met him. But, we were in a zone where we got the American League games on the weekends. And so the Tigers-Yankees rivalry was the thing when I was growing up. And we saw a lot of Tigers games. And I believe the Toronto Maple Leaf ball team that was located in Toronto with the International League team, I think they were the farm club of the Tigers for a while. And one or two games I managed to sneak downtown and watch when I was really young. I think even Sparky Anderson was on that club. So I had a familiarity with guys like Al Kaline, Norm Cash. That was a great era. And of course, Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris were the thing when I was a kid too. So I was fans of them as well.
First piece of memorabilia you remember buying was what?
It was a photograph of Satchel Paige that was signed by him. And I bought that at the same time as a photograph of the shot signed by Bobby Thompson. Those two pieces, I was walking through a memorabilia store, and I didn't collect that stuff yet. And so I saw these two pieces, and I thought, wow, though they would look really cool hanging in my office. So,
but then it becomes an addiction.
Yes.
Right. When did you realize that it was out of hand?
Last year.
Okay.
It's been out of hand for quite a while. It's my nature. The problem I have is not that I'm a borderline hoarder or that I'm a passionate collector, is that I have this kind of completist attitude to collecting. So, for example, when I started collecting no-hitter balls, well, I had to have every no-hitter ball that I could possibly find. And so it's that part of the illness that has caused me to have so much stuff that I couldn't even display it all. So,
we used to be a collector was pretty good, and then they started labeling us hoarders. And,
yes.
And then it became a negative. So I have a man cave full of stuff and just stuff that I've collected when I was at ESPN and, probably 40 years worth. But I have this huge building that I can put it in. Do you have a big building that you have all of this stuff in? Or did you run out of space?
Well, I ran out of space. I have this incredible office at home where I displayed all my favorite pieces, and I couldn't really display them all. I had boxes and boxes of wonderful pieces that I'd completely forgotten about. And then when I started collecting vintage bass guitars, I had a real problem. I had a critical mass issue at my home. So
how many guitars did you have?
About 350.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And you collected from bands like other artists?
Not so much. I was just interested in vintage pieces, rare pieces, a lot from what I call the golden age of guitar making, which was the late 50s, early 60s. And again, being a completist, I had to have one of each brand, even obscure Italian brands that were made and not many seen on this side of the world.
What's the most you spent on a piece of memorabilia?
Guitar or
Baseball.
baseball? Oh, I don't know. Over 100 grand I have spent. Yeah.
But you
I
got uniforms. You got uniforms as well, bats as well.
Yeah, I really tried to focus on single sign baseballs or game used baseballs. But it's also fascinating to me that sometimes in a bat, like I have a bat that might have been used by Joe Jackson, but it's one of his signature bats. And how do you not try to grab that if you're a collector? I have a lot of personal memorabilia that I would never part with for my collection. Stuff like I have Bill Lee's uniform. The day that he freaked out in the Montreal Expos clubhouse because Rodney Scott had been traded, he took off his Expos uniform, tore it up, and then headed to the bar across the street to have a few pints. And Jim Fanning picked up, who was the manager of the Expos at the time, he picked up the uniform and kept it all these years. And I got to know Jim through Larry Walker, who's a friend of mine, and a really nice family. And they, allowed me to purchase it from them for my collection. But that's something that's so special because I'm a Canadian and because the Expos were my first real passionate love.
I have an autographed baseball from Joe Carter and Mitch Williams on a World Series baseball. They both signed that
Wow.
that year that they. I don't know what it's worth, but I visited both of them that off season after Joe hit the home run, and I asked Joe if he would sign it, and then Mitch signed it as well. But what struck me though, Getty, is I asked Joe Carter where the home run ball was, and he said right there in the kitchen. So I open up a kitchen drawer, and the ball rolls out. And I go, that's one of the most famous baseballs in history. He goes, yeah, but I gave it to my wife. It wasn't in a trophy case. It was in a junk drawer.
Well, this is, he played the game. So to him, it's just a tool of the trade. Sometimes it's like that. I have memorabilia from Rush, passes and things from important gigs and shows. And, they're just collecting in some drawer or something. So I understand that feeling. Whereas if it was from baseball, for me, that would be just sacrosanct. You've got to put it in a special place.
You have a baseball signed by the Beatles?
I do. Yeah.
And that's
signed by the Beatles. Yeah. At Shea Stadium at that gig, that famous gig they did at Shea Stadium in the 60s.
What do you think that'll go for?
I have no idea, but it could go very high. It could very well be one of the highest selling items in the sale.
What are the top end items you think as far as this auction at Christie's?
Well, it's hard for me to guess. I'm so close to these things, and I've had so many of them for decades. But the Beatles ball for sure. I think that some of the presidential stuff, especially the John Kennedy first pitch, 1961. I mean, that's an amazing ball. I was very fortunate to acquire. And in fact, I was very fortunate to acquire a few John Kennedy signed baseballs. And in fact, in 1961, he's one of the few presidents that threw a first pitch out to both teams. That's a Democrat. There's some other great things. I have Johnny Vandermeer's final outs from his back-to-back no-hitters. That's pretty darn special, man.
See, that one is wild. We'll never have that again. And the fact that you got the final out on both of those no-hitters.
Yeah, I had to have them both. It's the same with the Kennedy 61 signed balls. I bought the first one that's also signed by Lyndon Johnson many, many years ago. And I thought it was the only one. And then up pops this other one on set for sale, and it's the other team. And I thought, well, this has got to be a fake because I have the original one. But it turns out he did, in fact, throw 2 pitches out that day.
We're talking to Geddy Lee. Are you still introduced as the lead singer of Rush?
That's what I'm kind of known for. So,
okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Lead singer, bassist of Rush, yeah.
But last time I talked to you, that was a couple of years ago. You said you were done. That's probably 6 years ago. But So are you done?
Well, Rush, Neil Peart, our drummer, retired in 2015. And sadly, he suffered from glioblastoma for a few years, and he passed away in 2020. So Rush, as a unit of Neil, Alex, and myself, of course, was over in 2015. Whether I will play again in some form, that's very possible. I leave myself quite open to that. I just finished a 2-year epic writing my memoir, and which is coming out today, as a matter of fact. And that was a great distraction and a real cathartic process for me. But now that that's done, I'm kind of anxious to get back to my day job and see if I can write some music that people still care about.
My Effin' Life. That is the engrossing tale of a classic underachiever who became a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame vocalist, bassist, and keyboard player. It's like somebody wrote that for me, Getty. But you guys aren't known for being like the Stones in the south of France when they were doing Exile on Main Street. Like, you weren't going crazy as a party band, were you?
Well, no, we flew under the radar, you see, because we didn't have any mainstream media attention. You know, we were kind of a cult band, like the world's most popular cult band. And so whatever transgressions we happened to get involved in, remained quiet. So I found it in my heart to share some of those crazy moments in my book that some people, I think, might be a little surprised to read.
Did you give me the band you partied with one time and lived to tell about it?
Oh, I remember a fantastic number of nights with the band UFO when they were touring with us. And I remember some of the guys in Thin Lizzy challenging us to a Scotch drinking contest. And I'd be very careful when you challenge a Canadian to a drinking contest, because we're a hardy breed up north. And there's a time that we had a party at the end of a Kiss tour where the drummer of Kiss ended up throwing a giant potted palm over a balcony out, and God, thankfully no one was hit. And so there are a few stories. And then there are some self-contained stories about one time in Manchester, England, when Alex had challenged our 6'11" stage manager to a cognac drinking contest. Now, that is not advisable because cognac is a sipping brew, right? Mm-hmm. You don't do shots of that. That is a very funny tale, I have to say. Bit too long and, censored to share here.
I Love You Man with Paul Rudd and Jason Segel. When you first heard about what they were doing, what was your reaction and what your role would be in that?
Well, we were coming out of a time, you have to remember, we had just sort of survived a 5-year hiatus where Neil had some terrible tragedies in his life, and we were not sure that he would come back to the band. But he did, thankfully, for the world of Rush fans and for me personally. And so when we embarked on that tour, we were of a completely different mindset. Things that we would normally say no to out of hand, we now decided, like that famous Seinfeld episode, if, every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite must be right. So we just started saying yes to everything. And John Hamburg had gotten the script to I Love You Man to us. We read it and we said, this is a comedy. This is good. Yes, we'll do it. And that's how it all started. And of course, when we got to the set, we had no idea how much fun we'd have. And the guys in the movie were so kind and so excited. And it was just one of the best memories I have.
And then you were with Paul Rudd last night?
Yes, Paul very kindly agreed to be my surprise guest host last night at the Beacon Theater. And he was as charming and affable as you could ever expect. He's just one of the nicest people in show business, honest to God. What a sincere guy.
Well, we'll come full circle because that's who Al Kaline was. He was a wonderful gentleman. And having met him a couple of times, I know you said that was your idol when you were growing up. You would have been proud to know that was your idol because he was a great man.
Well, I'm really happy to know that because I never did meet him, and that makes me smile. Thanks.
Good luck with the book. Good luck with the auction. And there's no shame in starting a new collection there, Getty. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it.
Always something else to collect.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dan. Great to be here.
That's Geddy Lee. And you can see the items that he is going to be auctioning off at Christie's.com.